The gravel crunched beneath our tires as Claire and I pulled up to the pine-shaded cabin nestled at the edge of Hickory Ridge Lane. We had waited years for this quiet, open space. No neighbors peering over fences, no board dictating what shade our shutters could be, just the woods, the breeze, and the crackle of a well-earned fire at night. Claire stepped out first, inhaling deeply, smelled that she said, smiling, "Freedom." I laughed, shutting the truck door behind me. "Freedom, it smells a lot like cedar and pine needles." We were still unpacking boxes and soaking in the silence when Trouble strolled in wearing white capris and oversized sunglasses. She didn't knock, didn't call out, just marched halfway up our drive and stopped like a queen inspecting her land. "Good morning," she trilled, waving a trifold brochure like it was a golden ticket. "I'm Karen Ellis, president of the Silver Hills Homeowners Association." Claire, still crouched by a box of gardening tools, stood and wiped her hands. "Hi, we're not part of an HOA, actually." Karen's lips curled in a smile too wide for her face. "Oh, I know, but that's just a minor detail. You see, the HOA adopted Hickory Ridge Lane last year. It's part of our new outreach plan. It includes your parcel now." I raised an eyebrow. "Outreach plan?" She nodded. "We maintain the road signage, do monthly drive-thrus, and host seasonal events. In exchange, you'll contribute dues and, of course, follow our community guidelines. It's very standard." Claire stepped closer. "Our realtor said this property isn't under any HOA, that's why we bought it." Karen's eyes flicked to the cabin, then back to us, her tone sweetening. "Realtors don't always have the most up-to-date information. We voted on it last October. Our bylaws allow us to extend coverage to adjacent properties, especially those benefiting from shared resources." I crossed my arms. "Let me be clear, we didn't agree to this. We didn't sign anything, and we're not paying for rules we never accepted." Karen's smile stiffened. "Well, there is a process. I've brought the introductory packet, $1,050 due quarterly, and your compliance checklist is inside. We'll schedule your initial property inspection next week." She slid the brochure into our mailbox like it was a foregone conclusion and turned on her heel. Claire called after her, "You can't just force us into an association." Karen didn't turn around. Refusals tend to create friction. I'd hate for that to happen in such a beautiful place. The words hung in the air like smoke from a distant fire vent, but threatening. We stared at each other. Claire's face was pale. Mine was hot with disbelief. That evening we opened the brochure. Inside was a dizzying list of codes, dues, and expected neighborly conduct. No exterior paint without approval. No livestock. No commercial use of the property. No holiday displays before December 10th. Even the length of our grass had a number attached 3 inches. "Max, they can't do this," Claire muttered, flipping pages. "This is absurd." I nodded. "It's a bluff. They have no legal authority. I'll call the county first thing tomorrow." Still, unease crept in like a slow leak that night. I double-checked the locks. By morning, the first notice appeared, taped crookedly to our front door. "Unpermitted woodpile, removed within 48 hours. No signature, no official seal, just those words in thick, black marker." I stood there staring at it, my morning coffee cooling in my hand. The woodpile was my workshop's lifeblood. I carved, built, and sold rustic furniture online. It was stacked neatly and safely behind the shed. Claire joined me at the door. "They're serious," she said quietly. "They're also wrong," I replied, but deep down, I knew this was the start of something, not a misunderstanding, not a paperwork glitch. This was a push, a deliberate attempt to box us in, and we were not the kind of people who boxed in ice. By Monday morning, 3 more notices had appeared. One was duct taped to our mailbox. "Unapproved mailbox design violates uniform aesthetic code." Another fluttered in the wind from our gatepost. "Unauthorized livestock structure detected. To remove immediately." The last was wedged under our front mat. "Failure to display HOA decal subject to citation." We didn't even have a DECAL. Claire gathered them up like foul laundry. "They're making it up as they go. They're not trying to enforce rules," I said, my jaw tightening. "They're trying to wear us down." That morning I drove to the county registrar's office with our deed in hand. The clerk confirmed what we already knew: our property lay completely outside the legal jurisdiction of the Silver Hills HOA. No easements, no binding covenants, nothing. "Their claim is bogus," the clerk said, stamping my request for formal verification. "If they escalate, document everything. These groups like to bluff. Some of them cross the line." That warning proved prophetic. When I returned home, Claire was standing on the porch, arms folded tight. "They sent someone," she said. "Said he was from the HOA enforcement committee. He walked straight around back, snapping pictures. Didn't even ask." I found the man still at the edge of our tree line, zooming in on our garden beds with a cheap digital camera. He wore a neon orange vest and a smug expression. "Hey," I barked, striding toward him. "This is private property. You're trespassing." He didn't even flinch. "Community compliance review," he said, flashing a laminated card that looked like it had been printed at home. "Part of our expanded authority agreement." "You have no agreement with me. We'll see how long you hold that position," he replied, clicking one last photo of my shed before strolling back toward the road like he'd done us a favor. That evening, we reviewed the footage from our security cameras. Claire had installed them after Karen's first visit, 6 discrete units tucked under the eaves and along the driveway. The video showed the man arriving in a Silver Hills branded SUV, stepping over our gate without hesitation, and documenting every angle of our home. Claire clenched her fists. This isn't oversight, it's surveillance. We filed a police report. The deputy listened carefully, then sighed. You're not the first, he said. Karen's group has a reputation for overstepping. We've had complaints, but they're good at towing the line just far enough to make people doubt whether it's worth fighting back. Oh, we're fighting, I said. Over the next week, the tactics intensified. Our trash bins were moved to the middle of the road twice. Claire's car received a bright orange sticker accusing her of illegal parking. One morning we woke to find a sign planted at the edge of our yard. This property is non-compliant, proceedings pending. It was designed to look official, with a fake seal and even a case number. But the moment that sealed it came 3 nights later. Claire and I were eating dinner when headlights swept across the front windows. A Silver Hills SUV idled at the end of our drive. Inside sat Karen and 2 other board members, clipboard in hand, taking notes. Claire stood slowly, fork in midair. Are they watching us? I grabbed my jacket and stepped outside. Karen rolled down her window but didn't greet me. She glanced down at her clipboard and spoke as if reading a script. You have now received 8 documented notices of non-compliance. As of this evening, you are considered in violation of Silver Hills. Covenant 4.3, refusal to participate. I stepped forward. We're not in Silver Hills. And if you trespass again, I'll have you charged. Her eyes narrowed. You'll find resistance only escalates your problems. We've dealt with stubborn residents before. Have you ever dealt with one who doesn't scare easy? A long silence followed. Then she smiled. You'll regret this. She put the SUV in reverse and disappeared into the night. Back inside, Claire looked at me from across the table. What now? I sat down slowly, heart pounding. Now we document, we report, and we dig. She raised an eyebrow. I opened my laptop and began pulling public records, financial filings, and property maps. If they want to fight, I said, they picked the wrong couple. Friday morning dawned gray and heavy, the sky swollen with storm clouds that hadn't quite made up their minds. Claire poured her coffee in silence while I scanned the overnight footage from our security cams. The same SUV had driven by twice, pausing for several seconds at the edge of our property both times. They're still watching. I said. Claire didn't flinch. They're getting nervous. We'd spent the last 5 nights collecting everything we could: legal documents, records of Silver Hills board elections, archived newsletters, and screenshots of their bio. Claire's knack for research paired with my stubbornness had made for a dangerous combination, and we had uncovered gold. Karen and her HOA had no authority to adopt adjacent roads, no matter what vote they claimed to have held. Even worse, we found discrepancies in the financial records submitted to the county. Annual dues collected didn't line up with their reported maintenance expenses. Their community security patrol was just a few board members driving unmarked SUVs, claiming to be authorized monitors. One even had a criminal record embezzlement. We compiled everything: videos, photos, documents into a clean digital report and sent it directly to the sheriff's white-collar crimes division, along with a formal complaint. At noon, I received a call from Deputy Lowell, the same officer who had taken our original trespassing report. Just a heads up, he said, voice low. That file you sent triggered a few alarms upstairs. Turns out, yours isn't the only complaint. They've been ignoring jurisdiction boundaries for years. Looks like it's all coming to a head. You're saying this isn't just harassment? I asked. It's bigger, he replied. Fraud, forgery, maybe even impersonating law enforcement. Don't do anything. Just watch. At 4:32 p.m., black SUVs rolled down Hickory Ridge Lane. But this time, they weren't HOA, they were law enforcement. Unmarked cruisers, tactical vests, radios crackling with code words. We watched from our porch as 5 vehicles boxed in the Silver Hills Community Center, a guest house Karen had converted into her command hub. Officers poured out like a precision strike team. They didn't knock. They didn't hesitate. Within moments, the front door was breached, and agents began collecting boxes, computers, and phones. Neighbors appeared on their lawns, phones in hand, whispering. A few gasped when Karen herself was led out in handcuffs, her white sun hat crushed under the weight of the moment. Claire exhaled slowly beside me. You think she still wants our $1,050? I shook my head. Pretty sure she's about to owe the state a lot more than that. 2 more board members were arrested that day. One tried to flee through the backwoods but was caught by a deputy waiting with a canine. Another, Carl, the guy who'd taken photos of our garden, was already under investigation for misusing HOA funds to renovate his garage. According to the press release that came out the next morning, the charges included wire fraud, unauthorized surveillance, falsification of legal documents, and operating a fraudulent organization under the guise of a legitimate HOA. Local news was all over it. One reporter even knocked on our door, asking for a statement. We declined, didn't want the spotlight, but Claire offered a single quote off camera. We didn't want a war. We just wanted to be left alone. The line made it into the evening news, and by nightfall, Silver Hills was the punchline on local radio talk shows. Neighbors began calling, apologizing for not speaking up sooner. Some had been coerced into paying, others were just afraid. A few quietly admitted they'd been thinking of moving out now. They were staying. I understood their fear. Karen hadn't just run a fake HOA, she'd created an illusion of power, a paper empire that looked real enough to make people comply, and we had kicked down the first card. Back on our porch, under a sky now breaking into rain, Claire leaned, her head on my shoulder. Think that's the end of it? Almost, I said, watching the last cruiser drive off with its lights dimmed. One more thing I want to do. 3 weeks passed. The air turned cooler, sharper, as if the land itself were finally exhaling after holding its breath for too long. The Silver Hills HOA no longer existed, not in any meaningful way. Karen, Carl, and 2 others faced multiple felony charges, and the so-called community center sat shuttered behind police tape. The board's assets were frozen. The bank accounts they had drained for years were now under forensic audit. A few neighbors stopped by, bringing baked goods or shy thanks. Most had been silent victims, too intimidated to speak out, too tired to fight. We didn't blame them. That was the power of people like Karen. They knew how to manipulate fear and make silence feel like survival. Claire and I didn't need the attention, but we welcomed the closure. We'd stood our ground. We'd refused to be bullied. And now, at last, the land felt ours. But there was still one thing left to do. We spent the morning cutting and sanding a thick slab of reclaimed oak. It had once been part of a barn, door-weathered, strong, and not easily moved. I carved the letters myself, slow and deliberate, while Claire coated the surface in a dark stain that soaked into every grain like memory. By dusk, we were finished. We carried the sign down to the edge of our driveway, the place where Karen had once stood, smiling with that phony confidence, holding her clipboard like a weapon. We mounted it on 2 posts sunk deep into the soil and bolted it into place. No HOA, no trespassing, no KARENS. It wasn't subtle, it wasn't poetic, but it was honest, and that's what this land deserved. Claire chuckled as she stepped back, hands on her hips. Think they'll get the message? If they don't, I said, I'll make a bigger sign. The next morning a pickup slowed down in front of it. The driver rolled down his window, gave a thumbs up, and kept driving. A few hours later, someone left a handwritten thank you note in our mailbox. Your courage gave us all permission to stop being afraid. Claire found it first. She didn't say anything, just slipped it into our scrapbook beside the deed to the property. We still got occasional letters from what remained of the Silver Hills community, some asking for advice, others just wanting to talk. It turned out we weren't the only ones they'd tried to pressure over the years. They'd pushed out young couples, intimidated retirees, and even fined a family for installing a wheelchair ramp, but no one had ever called their bluff until us. And while we hadn't set out to be anyone's example, it felt good knowing that resistance meant something, that holding your ground, even against people with fake badges and fancy clipboards, could make a difference. A month after the raid, Deputy Lowell visited again. He parked by the sign and whistled as he walked up. Can't say I've seen one like that before, he said, pointing his thumb at our message. It's the new welcome mat, I replied. He chuckled. Just wanted to let you know Karen's lawyers are trying for a plea. Looks like she's going down hard. They're throwing the book at her. Multiple counts of fraud, impersonating an officer, illegal surveillance, and tax evasion. It's not going away. Claire stepped outside with a tray of lemon bars, smiling. Justice tastes better with sugar. Lowell grinned, not gonna argue, as he left. I looked out across the ridge, the sky a wash of pink and copper. The pines whispered softly in the breeze. For the first time in months, the silence wasn't tense, it was peaceful. Claire stood beside me, slipping her hand into mine. We finally own it, she said. Yeah, I said, squeezing her hand. And no one's taking it away.